So we are here with Sharon the Heart Lady and Dan the Flirtatious Man. No, really. Started calling him the Flirtatious Man from our last podcast.
You did.
But he is really Dan the Healing Man. And how are you today, Dan?
I'm doing great, Sharon.
All
How
right.
about yourself?
Welcome, listeners and viewers, to Healing Me Before We. It's a podcast about examining common cliches and how they impact relationships. So we are here today to give you another cliche. And so, Dan, what if I said to you, once a cheater, always a cheater?
Well, you know what? I kind of think of the phrase that I've heard before: a leopard cannot change his spots. And so maybe you're saying a cheetah or a cheater cannot change his or her spots.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that I don't agree with that, because if I did, I wouldn't be a coach. Because as a coach, I believe that we are all capable of change, and that includes cheaters can change their behavior if they have an understanding of what it is that promotes their cheating. What is their cheating all about?
Mm-hmm. Well, there are also quotes that say cheating and lying aren't struggles. They are the reasons for a breakup. How do you feel about that?
Well, I agree with that, because I think cheating can certainly promote that disconnect in a relationship. And that's when relationships are, I would say, in trouble, when there is a disconnect. There is something in the relationship that is not going well, that is not positive, that is, damaging. And cheating can certainly be one of those things that brings a relationship to a place where the other person is saying, I don't want to be in a relationship with this person anymore because of their cheating behavior.
So do you think cheating is about the cheater or the one that was cheated on?
Well, you know what? I say it is about both, because my belief is that when someone in a relationship is cheating on the other person, it's kind of like a red flag, or the person is a whistleblower for that sort of disconnect in the relationship. There's something in the relationship where someone's needs aren't being met in some way, shape, or form. It could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be spiritual. The other person, for some reason, feels the need now to go outside of the relationship to have those needs met. And so It's not blaming the other person who's being cheated on. I don't condone the cheating behavior.
Mm-hmm.
What I think is important is to look at and explore the cheating behavior and what's beneath it.
True. I think that some of the reasons why one may cheat on the other, they may have been brought up in a household where they've seen that as familiar. It's been forgiven or silently unforgiven, but they've seen that, and they don't see anything wrong with it. What do you think about that?
Well, I agree with that if you grow up in something, it becomes a norm. And so often what happens, and we see this in relationships all the time, is that we get into relationships with other people that have these kinds of familiar characteristics to us, even though if you look at it from the outside in, people would say, why are you with that person? And when we look at the person's history and how they were raised, like you said, there's that familiarity. So we are attracted to what we are familiar with, to what is safe and secure and feels comfortable, even if it isn't healthy.
Yeah. And then poor men. Men get the brunt of this because, there's also another cliche that says, well, boys will be boys, or you need to expect a man will cheat. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that kind of goes back to our podcast last week about men
Uh-huh.
are more visual than women. And
Yeah.
so, because men have more of a wandering eye, then that wandering eye may lead to not just the eye wandering, the hands wandering, and other body parts wandering as well. And so, I would agree with you that, we've kind of set men up in the way that we view them and how we portray them.
Yeah. And I think that also, when it comes to cheating, that a lot of women, because they've expect a man to cheat, even though they expect that it's a possibility.
Mm.
Because let's real if you're in a monogamous relationship, and even if, strangely enough, if you're in a relationship that's polyamorous, or a relationship where you've made the conscious mutual agreement together that we will have different partners, there is still cheating there because it breaks a trust. So especially when there are multiple partners in a relationship, trust is even a bigger factor. And so cheating, it to me is a mistrust and a disrespect.
Mhm.
Um, Research indicates that 25% of married men cheat, and 20% of married women, they cheat or engage in extra sexual or extramarital affairs. So women is not that far off from 25 and
Well,
20.
once again, when you look at these studies and statistics, it's all dependent upon what is reported,
Hmm. Of
right?
course,
And
yeah.
so we have to take that into consideration
Yeah.
in terms of honesty and
Yeah.
a willingness to disclose one's cheating behaviors.
I,
What I'm
is it
saying is, I don't think
that?
that necessarily men are more willing to cheat than women. I think it
Yeah.
goes back to what you said. It's more socially acceptable for men to disclose their cheating than it is for a woman to disclose her cheating.
And it's also been said that um, women are better cheaters than men. So when you talk
Mm.
about if it hasn't been disclosed, because a lot of women know how to cheat and not get caught.
So that's what you're saying. Now you're making an important distinction. Not getting caught. Okay. So you're saying basically men aren't that bright and that women can pick up on things right away when a man is cheating, whereas a man, he's not as aware of what might be going on with his significant other because he just doesn't have that kind of same,
He doesn't have no,
yeah.
because his ego goes before she would never
Uh-huh.
cheat on me,
I
or
got
he
you.
would never cheat on me.
Okay. All right.
I'd
Sure.
love to hear what our viewers have to say about that. But but yeah, it has been said. But um, I think that you're right as far, or I should say, I agree with you. The fact that if someone is cheating on the other, then there is a disconnect, and there is a need that has not been met.
Mhm.
So, can cheaters be forgiven? Is it
Mhm.
once a cheater, always a cheater? How
Mm.
true does that hold to you?
Well, for me, the most important thing is that each person in the relationship recognize that there is that disconnect. Now, of
Mm.
course, the person who's being cheated on may not feel ready in a place to really want to further explore it because they're hurting, they're betrayed, they're angry. And so the first thing I would do as a coach is work with that person and explore those feelings and help that person work through those feelings to be in a place of readiness to sit down with the other person, to be able to, if we get to that place of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah.
you're not in a place of readiness to forgive the other person, then the relationship isn't going to go anywhere. It's
Yeah.
going to be stuck in the anger, in the
Absolutely.
betrayal, in the feelings of, what you said earlier, there's a lack of trust. Once trust is broken in a relationship, to me, that is probably one of the most challenging things to restore in the relationship.
Yeah. It really is. And unfortunately, a lot of the couples who come to us, they may not be in a state of readiness. They may be in a state where we want to know why, that biggest question, why did you do this and how many times and
Mm.
who were they and their names and just want all the details, which I don't really feel it serves the other to know all of that. It just makes them angrier, right?
Mhm.
So I think anger in a relationship is a big red flag if it has not been able to resolve. There are many, that's one of the reasons why a partner may become unfaithful is because, they're angry and they may use having an affair as a way to seek revenge.
Well, it goes back to our last couple of podcasts, right? We're starting to really find the common threads. Don't go to bed angry.
Mm.
Well, if somebody in the relationship is going to bed angry to, keep the peace in the relationship, then there's that disconnect. And
Yeah.
and in that disconnect is where I believe we find most cheating behavior. There's some type
Mm.
of disconnect. Now, it
Disconnect.
could
Yeah.
be for somebody a fear of intimacy, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
they only want to get so close to a person. And believe it or not, being physically close isn't as vulnerable as being emotionally close.
Yeah, I
And
wanted to
so,
bring that up. Yeah, really, emotional cheating can really hurt, even over the physical cheating. When one finds out that another has an emotional connection to someone else and is able to talk their feelings about themselves and they're intimate with that person virtually and emotionally, that can kind of sting for those who say, "Oh, I just had a sexual fling. It doesn't mean anything." But when you have an emotional cheater or an emotional relationship, that seems as though it's cheating, and very hurtful to some.
well, it's funny that you say it doesn't mean anything because that was what I was exploring for this podcast. When
Mm,
someone says to their significant other, it didn't mean anything, that's very hurtful in itself
mm,
because it's
yeah,
dismissing the other
yeah,
person's feelings
feelings,
of
yeah,
anger, of
yeah,
betrayal, of whatever it is that person. Oh, you don't need to feel that way because it didn't mean anything.
yeah. Well, and another way it could be interpreted, it didn't mean anything. It's just that was a sexual fling. I was drunk or we was out and I was attracted to him or her and we decided to do it. It was just a one-time
Mm.
thing. So saying that it didn't mean anything, it didn't hold an emotional tie. I still love you and want to be with you. It just happened.
Well, first off, I don't buy the whole drunk thing. Okay, I've
Okay.
heard these stories before where
Yeah.
a man or a woman gets so drunk and they're walking home and they end up in somebody else's house and in somebody else's bedroom. All
Yeah.
right,
Oops.
I don't buy it. First off, if you're that drunk, you're going to pass out before you get to the entrance of the home, and
Yeah. I think
so
you're very
we can
conscious.
make
Yeah.
all kinds of excuses, right,
Yeah.
for our behavior. And I
Yeah.
guess what I want to focus more on is not so much the person's feelings who does the cheating, it didn't mean anything. Okay, that's part of it. It's about the other person and their feelings, whether it meant something to you or not, that one night stand, it meant something to your significant other. And that's what's being dismissed not
Yeah.
maybe your feelings, the other person's feelings are being dismissed by saying it didn't mean anything. It was just a
And yes,
sexual
that's
thing.
right. And to the relationship at large, right?
Hmm.
Where this because it could be a breach of contract. I think that if two people are in a relationship, there is a unspoken contract. I
Hmm.
believe in you speak the contract. Say what you expect and what are your negotiables, what are your non-negotiables, so that we're upfront. So if you say to the person, I don't tolerate cheating under any form,
Hmm.
then if someone goes out and cheats, then that is a breach of contract.
Well,
And
I
that's
think
a breach of trust.
a
Mhm.
great place for that to happen is going back to our last podcast about flirting. It's
Mm.
like, okay, maybe one person didn't understand the other person's interpretation of how they saw flirting. If one person in the relationship sees flirting as cheating and the other person doesn't, there's an opportunity now to have that kind of discussion about what you're talking about, establishing that kind of contract, to use your word, or boundaries about what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in this mutual relationship, the
Relationship. Yeah.
relationship of we. So
Yeah.
when I say we talk often about healing me before we're really talking about, more often than not, healing myself to be in a relationship with someone else so
Yeah.
that I can work through some of my own issues that don't have to then spill over into the relationship with my current partner. And
Right.
once we're in that we relationship, now there's a mutual understanding or respect for the other
Hmm.
person. Whether I
Yeah.
think my behavior is acceptable or not, the other person doesn't find it acceptable. And that's where that discussion needs to come in so that both parties can be okay with it.
Yeah. I think you also, one another reason why people may cheat is because they want to feel better about
Mhm.
themselves. They have low self-esteem. So if someone else flirts with them, that makes them feel better, and they may make the choice to be with someone else just to help build up that self-esteem.
Mhm. I agree.
And it also could be some people want variety, a variety of partners. And so if that is how the one feels, again, I believe that this needs to be discussed before you go out and do that. And many people are shy to discuss that true feeling because they still want to be with that person. At the end of the day, um, someone's feelings is going to get hurt. There is a breach of trust. That low commitment, it's going to, it's the person going to get caught cheating one way or
Well,
the other.
especially if
Actually,
it's
they
a
always
man, according to you, because
say,
we're not the brightest. That
well,
the woman's going to pick up on our cheating, and I would
but
agree with you because we're going to.
an attuned man with his partner will pick up. I do believe that
Hmm.
because it's only but so long that the female in the relationship is going to have these excuses or have these ways to go and meet the other partner. There's only but so much girlfriend trips. There's only but so much I'm working late. There's only but so much I'll be back soon. And an attuned man with his partner, we give off scents, smells.
Hmm.
So and we are really habitual people. So when you see that there's a change
Hmm.
in routine,
Hmm.
then also those are some red flags. Just like if you were to assess if someone was having a mental disturbance, a mental illness, and I'm bringing that up because I just finished taking this mental health course, and it's when people's behaviors begin to change and their verbiage begins to change, their habits. You can start to recognize something's up. But when our inner self tells us something is not right, we don't need to wait for proof. We need to just talk about it.
Bring it up. Well, you're talking about intuition, that trust your gut, trust your own intuition. And of course, observing the behavior of your significant other. If there are big changes in their behavior, then that's something that is a red flag, as you said, to further explore. And I agree with you that it's important. Going back to your word, you used the word shy. Okay. And there's no place for shyness in a relationship. Shy is a choice. I used to tell my college students that. They used to say, Professor, I'm shy. And I say, okay, thank you for telling me. Now I know to call on you. Oh, no, don't do that. That's why I told you I'm shy. And I said, yes, I get what you're saying. There's no place for being shy in a relationship with someone that you trust, that you have intimacy with on all levels. That's a willingness to be open and honest and vulnerable, to be able to address any issue that you find necessary to address. That includes your own, for lack of a better word, suspicions of the other person that he or she may be cheating, and just to explore it.
I think also that could, being shy and being vulnerable is kind of natural. I think that it's with growth and how long and how open both of you are in a relationship, because being vulnerable can take a while to gain that trust, and not to be as shy about certain things in their personal lives before they met their partner. So I think it's time and growth with your partner before you can be totally vulnerable or feel as though you may not be shy to bring up certain things.
Well,
so in one hand, you can say, well, in a relationship, there is no space of being shy. I don't totally agree with that. And it depends on how long you've been together. And also, I'm a big believer in defining your relationship. A lot of couples break up because they haven't defined where they are in the relationship and haven't explored what their future looks like, and even explored what their past looked like, and how they plan to grow together. So I think it's a fine line be saying, well, you can't be shy in a relationship. I think you can be shy in a relationship because it's guarding you, and you're going to be shy until you feel the complete trust and the ability to open up to that individual. And I think that takes time. And how long? It depends. For some, it may be months, but for most, it may be years.
Well, let me use an example. So let's say when you first get married to someone, you're that type of person who doesn't want the lights on when you're having sex. Okay. You want the lights off. And so the other person goes along with that. All right. And now the relationship has gone into months, into years. Does the person ever change and say, okay, it's okay for us to have the lights on while we're having sex? I have finally gotten to a place of readiness to be comfortable enough to do it. And there has to be that kind of discussion in order for that change to happen, right? And it takes both parties to help support that change, for that change to happen. Now, there's some people who will never turn the lights on. They will stay that way. And then the other person says, at some point, I don't get it, right? How come you can't have the lights on? And
that person needs to come and see us.
And it goes back to it goes back to what we're talking about. The person isn't comfortable with his or her own skin, right? That's more than likely the issue. It's not seeing the other person naked. It's not being comfortable in their own skin. And so I hear what you're saying about
maybe not just uncomfortable. There may be some trauma there as well.
Well, that's a possible thing as well. Yes, I agree. There may
Can
have
you
been
talk about,
abuse
yeah,
or something earlier on in life, and now they don't see their body as something beautiful. Okay.
absolutely.
And so here's an example that we can use. That issue needs to be further explored. If the other person's fine with it for the whole relationship, okay, we're not going to turn the lights on. I'm okay with that. At some point, though, the person may further down the road say, I really don't get it. I think the lights ought to be turned on. And the other person's still in that same place of, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
And so what
So,
happens is now this person who is in the relationship with the person who never wants to turn the lights on may say, I'm going to go look for someone who wants the lights on.
yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up. That is another red flag. Talking about, sexual desire. It may be that one partner refused to perform certain acts during sex that really that the partner really enjoys,
Mm-hmm.
and or another reason why someone may cheat in their relationship is that they may just feel neglected
Mm-hmm.
and need that sense of sexual desire, that intimacy. So they may cheat if one partner has lost interest in having sex with them. Maybe that's can happen when you get a little older, and maybe one's libido is not as high as the other, and so they start to lose interest. Or it may be, as I've heard from younger couples, is that, hey, my partner doesn't want to perform certain acts that I like. So, I have to get it from someone else. Or I have a very high libido and they can't keep up. So I have to satisfy myself elsewhere. And I do look at you sideways when you say that.
So, I kept it to the lights, all right? And you took it into some other areas of, sexual pleasure and performance and positioning and all of that. And it's really about the same thing, isn't it? It's about mutual agreement on things that both parties are willing participants in whatever the behavior is, in engagement of whatever that behavior may be. And sometimes you're going to come to an impasse where the other person isn't going to be willing to engage in the behavior that you may want to. Does that mean then that that person needs to go outside of the relationship and cheat?
I agree. I agree because there are variables, when women particularly have a whole lot of variables when it comes to sexual desire. It could be during pregnancy, it could be post pregnancy, it could be post a female condition. So there are these other variables that you have to talk about
Well, there
when
you
it
go.
comes to
There's
cheating and sexual desire. Those
there's
are
the
things that
bottom line,
really need to be talked about.
the
But again,
disconnect.
people may be shy in doing that.
Well, okay. What I'm going to say is this: the bottom line is communication, right?
Yeah,
There's a disconnect
always.
in the communication, whether it's physical, sexual communication or emotional communication, whatever it is that needs to be further explored. That's where you and I, shameless plugs, come in as life coaches. Dan the Healing Man,
And
danmikins.com. Look me up. I can
boy,
help you. I can help you get the lights turned on.
I hear your plug. My plug too. You can always ask the Heart Lady, relationship and emotional healing specialist. So there, we had our opportunity to talk about it. But Dan, I just thought about something. Do you think that it's cheating if the partner engages in a lot of pornography?
You know what? That's a podcast in itself. I would say, once again, it comes down to, if a couple watches pornography together and they
Mm-hmm.
both get excited from it and then they take that excitement into the bedroom or whatever room in the house they want to and enjoy each other, then I would say that's a positive thing. If
Mm.
pornography is used as a means for separate stimulation and it creates isolation in the relationship, then I would say that's more than likely a negative. And so
And
it
would that be
depends.
considered cheating?
Well, I think the answer goes back to what you talked about earlier, the contract, right? The mutual
Mhm.
agreement of the contract that the couple make together to decide whether or not something like pornography is cheating or
Mm.
texting is cheating or flirting is cheating. And
Mhm.
all of those things
That's
need to
right.
be explored whether a person is shy or not. They have to
Yeah,
step out of
yeah.
their shyness in that relationship to be able to discuss it more.
Yeah, I'd really love to hear what our viewers and listeners have to say about this because this is a true hot topic. But what do you think as we get ready to close, are some things that we can explore for repairing cheating?
Mhm.
Is there ways that you can, once a cheater, always a cheater? Do you think someone can change and that forgiveness is can be explored?
Well, I am all in for change, right? We wouldn't be coaches if we didn't believe that people can change. Going back to
Yeah.
what I said earlier, though, each party has to be in a place of readiness. The cheater to be able to acknowledge the cheating and further explore the cheating and what the cheating is all about, and the
But
person who has been cheated upon to further explore their feelings of anger and
yeah,
betrayal and
betrayal.
and
Yes.
that break of trust in the
Yes.
relationship. And so
Yeah.
that's why you and I, as coaches, I
Yeah.
work with each one separately when
Separately.
I'm doing the
Hmm.
coaching, and then I bring them together when they're both in a place of readiness to sit down and
Yeah.
really talk about it in a way that doesn't
Yeah.
have so I mean judgment is a difficult thing to remove because that's not going to
Hmm.
happen right away, in a place
Hmm.
of readiness to at least further explore it without the
Right.
anger or
Mhm.
other feelings taking,
Yeah.
presiding over it.
Yeah. Regaining trust is a process as
Hmm.
well. I think regaining trust is just is one of those things that takes as long as it takes, just
Hmm.
like dealing with grief. You need support, but it still takes as long as it takes. So there are ways that you can help to make it more tolerable, I guess, within the person. But I believe that if the person was the cheater, it's their responsibility to make sure that they're taking actions.
Hmm.
Also, you have to consider, was this a one-time deal?
Hmm.
Also, I think that you want to consider, has the cheater have a history of cheating in previous relationships? I think that also is a definite part in the equation, um, and um, and how they respond to the one that was cheated upon. How did they respond? Were they remorseful?
Hmm.
And did they show, that they really didn't mean it?
Hmm.
And are they willing to open up
Well,
and do the
I'm going to
work that
open
it
up a
takes?
can of worms, even though we're already extended. The whole
Yeah.
thing of didn't mean it just doesn't
Yeah.
wash with me. They
Mm.
did it for a reason, okay? And now,
Mm.
whatever their reason or reasons may be, that's what the person has to acknowledge, okay? Because
Mhm.
if they didn't mean it, they wouldn't have done it. It's like the alcohol thing, right?
Can
I
be
just
feeling
don't buy
vulnerable.
the alcohol thing that the
It's not just
alcohol
the
led me to
alcohol
do
thing,
it.
though. It's not just the alcohol thing, though, Dan. I think
Mhm.
that if people are already in a vulnerable space
Mhm.
within their own selves, what's happening within them, and of course the relationship is a contributing part too. But I think that people could be what's the word, seduced.
Mhm.
And I think that if they've had an emotional relationship with this person, I think things can just happen, and they really didn't mean for it to go that far. Yes, they did make the choice, but I'm sure that all of us have done things, and it's like, wow, I shouldn't have done that. I really didn't mean to do that. So I believe in giving people grace, but at the same time, I think as an adult, you have responsibilities, and you shouldn't put yourself in a situation where you can fall prey to that.
Okay. I'll go
So
with that.
that's
I
it.
we don't want to split words because the thing is, whatever the behavior is, they did it. Okay, whether they meant to do it or not, they
Yeah,
did it,
that's
and the other
all right.
party is now hurt as a result of that behavior. Okay, and so to
They did it.
diminish it, that's right. Okay, and
They did it.
and acknowledging it is really, to me, the first step. Acknowledging it,
Yeah.
whether they intended. What did they say? The road is paved with good
Good
intentions,
intentions, yeah.
and so
Mm.
whatever their intention was or wasn't, they did it, and now they got to own it.
Now you got to own up to it.
That's right, own it. And now, if they want to move forward in the relationship, if there's a desire, there's an important word. If there's a
Yeah.
desire for the relationship to move forward, then each person has to address his or her own issues around that cheating behavior
Yeah.
in order for that relationship to heal. To
Yeah.
heal, which doesn't mean forget. Go back to our
Those left.
previous
Oh,
podcast. Forgiving
right.
doesn't mean forgetting. That
Yeah.
will probably never be forgotten. And now it's going to be the choice of the person who's been cheated on to be able to move forward with this kind of behavior having occurred, and a
Mm-hmm.
willingness to let go of holding on to it, right? Holding on to it, because then that bitterness, the resentment will preside over
Yeah.
anything else.
Yeah. And I truly think that if you've experienced cheating in previous relationships and are still experiencing now, you really need to talk to
Mhm.
someone, a professional like us. I think that infidelity is something that you really need to explore
Mhm.
for yourselves and as a couple. And so, Dan, before we leave, I'm really
Yeah.
curious, what's that around your neck
Oh,
there?
I'm wearing an eclipse necklace because we just had the
Okay.
full solar eclipse. And you and I were talking about this beforehand, how, relationships go through phases. And
Hmm.
we just observed with the full solar eclipse how we went from a stage of darkness, which could be in that relationship where there's that disconnect and there's that disharmony from maybe somebody cheating on the other person, and then how that can change back into the light with help from like coaches like yourself and myself to help go through that darkness, that phase, and come back into the light
So,
with one
Dan,
another.
did the moon cheat on the earth and the earth cheat on the sun, or did the sun cheat on who cheated on who?
I think we would need a guest like Neil deGrasse to give us more information about that. Let's invite him on one of our
Okay.
podcasts.
So, family, healing me before we heart surfers. We just had a great time talking to you about our cliche today, which was once a cheater, always a cheater. We'd love for you to chime in and let us know your thoughts. Um, both of us do agree that that's not necessarily true. We want to be able to give people grace and an opportunity to change. So I don't think that it's not necessary. There are things that we didn't talk about, but maybe we'll talk about it on the next one. There are situations where, or people that are called serial cheaters. And we can talk a little bit about that again, a serial cheater. So I had fun as usual talking with you, Dan. And thank you for your words of wisdom.
All right, surf's up.